This is Tyrese Anderson. What I want to talk about right now is something that I'm certain has come up in some way, shape, or form in pretty much every black person's head at some point, in some way, shape, or another. Most, most have the ability to fight it. Some people might have a bit more trouble fighting it, but truth be told, it's a problem nevertheless for both for any black person for that matter. Which the truth of the matter is that it comes down to a big question that comes up quite often, which is that should we be ashamed of our, embarrassed of our past? Or in other words, the way I'm going to describe it for this video, why we should not be embarrassed about our past. Because the truth of the matter is, when it comes to the history of slavery all the way to the Jim Crow segregation era and stuff, you know, the biggest misconception a lot of people tend to have is that Europeans smashed Africans. They smashed us really badly. We couldn't fight back. We lost really badly. We had poor quality military. Our people were, if anything, too primitive to fight back, and so on and so forth. We sucked. They smashed us. That pitiful feeling. But the truth of the matter is, the truth, like in a lot of cases, especially when you take into consideration that Africans were just as intelligent as the Europeans were, because all intelligence really comes down to, in the end of the day, is really how motivated you are to specialize in a particular skill, and just simply down to the fact that you can retain knowledge and stuff over time. The truth of the matter is that notion couldn't be further from the truth, because the truth of the matter is that during the times of slavery, the Europeans only caught anything, caught black people because they were helped by local Africans. If they were to fight against the local Africans, they would have lost badly, to truth be told, because Africa, just like any other part of the world, had a very good warrior structure. Like any culture in the world, look at Polynesians. West Africa is very similar to Polynesian culture in a lot of ways, and sometimes the Polynesians actually defeated the Europeans. They had the ability to defeat the Europeans, the West African people, not to mention they would have fought in a different form of warfare that the Europeans were not familiar with. They knew the land better, they knew where to go, the poisonous snakes that could probably kill them, and so on and so forth. They knew all those things. They could expel them at any time they wanted to for a good portion of their history. The Europeans couldn't really do anything, and when you look at the history of the battles, the casualties on the European side, believe it or not, was actually huger than that for the African side. That's the truth of the matter. It's just that they were more focused on selling each other than actually fighting against the Europeans. Because Europeans at the time, a lot of African nations, I don't think really understood the true evil that they had in mind, or just in general the evil that they were. They just thought of them as just simply people on these ships that probably just in general, well, not even probably, definitely from historical accounts, smelt horrible. Horrible, who just simply picked up people who are, simply put it, war captives for tribes that they were not even getting along with in the first place, to ship them off over to America, to ship them off over to North America, if anything, or the Americas in general. That's the truth of the matter, which they do not let people know. We did not get smashed. We did not lose really badly. Even for the scoundrel of Africa, truth be told, that came later on. Um, the thing is that they were helped in a lot of cases by fellow Africans who helped them, if anything, and they needed technology like the Gatling machine gun to be able to take out the African people easily. So what does that show you centuries later? So that's a huge misconception a lot of people have, is that we got smashed. Even when you look at later time periods, such as the Jim Crow era, which segregation, all that stuff you're kind of familiar with if you understand American history. These people who did that stuff were cowards. There's nothing to consider fascinating or interesting about them. Because I think a lot of black people, not myself, of course, because I know the truth, but a lot of black people might have some secret fascination with some of the techniques and the methods that these Ku Klux Klan members and all these people use, and there are methods of being able to kill people and stuff. But the truth of the matter is, there's actually a lot of embarrassing experiences the Ku Klux Klan had. They once picked on this Native American tribe that was half black, particularly, of course, because they're half black. They wanted to cause problems with them. They said that, okay, let's have a fight. Let's have a fight. And those people actually knew how to use the firearms and stuff. And you know what happened? Those two groups were supposed to meet, and guess what? Not many Ku Klux Klan members showed up in the first place. Showed up in the first place to fight against them. You know, not to mention they supported gun legislation to prevent African Americans from owning firearms because they know that African Americans would obviously fight back against them. Not to mention, even when you look at the Civil War, there's many African Americans who actually, it's said, were some of the best fighters, obviously, because they were ex-slaves, so they were very physically fit, who were able to take out scores of the Confederate soldiers and stuff. Look at how disfigured a lot of them looked. There's nothing to be proud about for that part of history for the Confederacy. Look at how many of them came out of that war disfigured and stuff. And back to the segregation era, that came, of course, later on. They just pretty much, even when you look at their history of the lynchings and all that stuff that they did, they pretty much just picked on people who couldn't even fight back, even for a group of people at the time who didn't have any power. They just pretty much picked on petty criminals who probably stole something like some silly shoe, people who probably had mental health problems, people who couldn't fight back. They're cowards. They're cowards. There's nothing to be considered fascinating or interesting about them. Even if you despise them, you might have some degree of fascination. There's nothing fascinating about them. They're cowards. They couldn't fight back. And just in general, truth be told, anyone can shoot a gun. You don't have to be of some so-called BS Aryan stock or some crap like that. Anyone can shoot a gun. Anyone can be efficient at that if you put enough time and effort. It doesn't even take a lot of brain power. It just simply takes hand-eye coordination. Can you ride a bike? Can you do all that stuff? Then of course you can shoot a gun if you put an effort to do it. So these people are cowards. There's nothing to be proud about, especially when you look at over the history from slavery all the way to the segregation era and all that stuff, even to now with the police who treat us badly. The racists, of course, not all white people, but it's just a matter. These people are cowards. They're not the big tough guys that they try to portray themselves to be. Look at the time. Not saying this was a good thing, but the time that one black person who's had enough of the police racism and stuff and mistreatment shot 6 of them and actually killed 6 of them, and how they literally had to have 4 presidents, Barack Obama, George Bush, I think they had Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush to stand together and hold hands to show some degree of a sign of unity, just for 6 cops getting shot to death. Does that, a system like that, which America in general as a whole is a racist system, does that seem like bravery to you or something to be embarrassed about? Because truth be told, there's nothing to really be embarrassed about, in all honesty. The past is the past. It's time to move forward. There's a good part of African history I'm certain that happened. like black people were around during the times of Romans and all that stuff, but it just doesn't get covered because they decide not to cover it. They decide to just cover the stuff that the parts of our history that suck, and they talk about some BS about, well, you know, it's too hard to find artifacts, but how could they understand dinosaurs that literally existed tens of millions of years ago, but they can't find stuff related to black civilizations that existed only a few thousand years ago? You have to add things up because they don't want us to know our history. And the truth be told, you shouldn't be embarrassed because of it. No matter how you look at it, even from a peaceful perspective of not wanting retaliation, you shouldn't be embarrassed of it. Because anyone can defend themselves, anyone can do this, and we didn't have opportunity to do any of that stuff. So that's the truth of the matter is, this is my video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. If you like my videos, remember to subscribe and hit the thumbs up button, and that's all I have to say. So later.